Okay, so for the second try, since I didn't have enough space in the last video I uploaded to talk about this, I decided to make a separate one specifically about these posts and like two other ones. Well, one new one. And I had forgot this picture, so now I'm going to talk about it. More from the youth quote-unquote shelter I work at. So basically, this person was someone who was trying to figure out how they could report the place that they've been working at because of a lot of weird stuff they've noticed and how they don't even really seem to be licensed. And something that I always say that's known in abuse escape groups, or at least the one that I really have seen that I mentioned a couple other times on here, is that, wait, what did I say? Okay, anyway, something that's known on there is that there really are no shelters for people under 18. So any shelter that's claiming it's a youth shelter, if it's not 18 to 24, is some foster care placement for when they have nowhere else to put the kids, but they may not want to throw them into like a mental facility like they usually do. In fact, the shelters probably are basically part mental facility, like really all parts of the Cash for Kids system are. And so, dang, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, so this means that any facility that's claiming that they're not a part of CPS and that they're going to allow people under 18 to stay in their quote-unquote shelter is definitely a risk, because they definitely want to use and abuse people. They're definitely part of the Cash for Kids system, because it's already known that there is no real help purposely for people under 18, or really anybody in any bad situation, to be honest. Because for one, if you're not being trafficked, drugged, abused, and labeled through the Cash for Kids system, you're seen as a criminal. So it's like, okay, my recording time right now. I don't know why I won't just screen record these. But anyway, what I was going to say is that I think I was going to say that if you're not in the Cash for Kids system and you're not living with your abusive relatives or whatever, then you have no guardian and you're seen as a criminal. And I mean, even at 18 plus, if you're not in the systems and you're like living in a tent or something, you're basically seen as a criminal. But even more so when you're under 18, because that's when the systems really feel like people are supposed to be using you and pushing you around and having control over you like some type of cash cow. So this means that any facility that's claimed that they're going to help, and they're for people under 18 who don't want to live with their parents or ran away, it's just always going to be a red flag, because that means they're going to want to be a guardian over you. And that means once you walk in there, if they claim they're for people under 18, you're not going to be able to leave. And this one is actually kind of weird, because the lady said this is for people 12 to 18, and it's almost giving some type of Job Corps vibe, because it's weird that the people that are 18 aren't allowed to leave or get a job either. That's why it's really giving CPS vibes, but it's also giving me Job Corps vibes, because at Job Corps, even the people who were 18 to 24 aren't allowed to leave campus to go to the store or anything. They can't do home visits, none of that. It's just really, really weird to me. It's only been in really, really rare cases, like where some kid gets abandoned, especially on the West Coast, that I see people under 18 be allowed in shelters, which of course they wouldn't be shelters for people under 18. They'd really be like family shelters. Like there's this one story I heard from some people I met of some boy named Giovanni, and basically his mom abandoned him on a beach in San Diego at 12, and then his dad was dead or something and had died some years ago, and he had just been running around homeless. And then the police would arrest him for no reason, like they like to do homeless people, so they pushed him into the Cash for Kids system and gave him false charges and stuff. And then eventually at like 15, 16, he finally got out of jail and was able to go into an adult shelter. And then they had him on a list for a voucher and stuff. And it's really just rare cases like that, because for one, For you to even go to any shelter that's claiming that they're going to let you in under 18, they have to call the police and CPS within 24 hours and or get parents' permission. And of course, depending on your abuse situation, you're not going to be able to get parents' permission. But then also, if you're in like some mental label Munchausen situation like I was, you're not going to be able to do that anyway. Because like if places were to see the smear campaign in the mental labels, they would label me as a risk / liability to the other people around me and even myself, all because of labels that aren't true. And so that's why people who are in Munchausen situations similar to myself, or just were in situations, the usual situations really, where their abusers want to infantilize them and want to sabotage them, just have to do the lay low till 18 thing. And some even have to run to other countries and illegally cross borders and stuff because mental labels have so much stigma attached to them. But anyway, the point is, when you already know that you can't get help when you really need help when you're in the abuse situation, it's going to be an obvious red flag when anybody or any organization is claiming that they're going to help now that you got yourself out of the situation and you're trying to help yourself, which is something that I learned revolving around the whole let me help you lunatic thing that I've named and pieced together, but that's another story really. So anyway, you can see this place has a reward system. This is something that's common in culty, abusive systems, especially the Cash for Kids system. And so basically, you have to kind of kiss butt for basic needs. So they have a reward system called Bronco Bucks. Kind of reminds me of when my relatives made us get fake money to buy snacks and drinks and stuff out the kitchen. I don't even want those flashbacks. And so anyway, so the I just completely lost my train of thought. I've tried this over so many times, but I'm assuming that once they do the chore thing on the chore sheet that I have a screenshot of somewhere in here, that's when they get the Bronco Bucks, or just for kissing butt and following the toxic rules in general. They get the Bronco Bucks. So like $5 they can get a cup of coffee, a Pop-Tart and chips. $10 they can get soda and ice cream and small treasure chest item. And then just the usual stuff that these types of systems will do to try to make you feel content and to try to make you feel a little less trapped. It's really manipulation, torture mechanisms, to be truthfully honest. It's basically like if you leave the staff members alone for a little while and you sit chained to your bed on Adderall and quietly stare at the wall and cry, and in whatever Cash for Kids system placement you're in, you get shower privileges. And then you can see here it says $75 and you get an hour of rec time. Well, you can get an hour of rec time or a tie-dye activity or lunch with a staff member. Because I'm assuming it's probably not even all of them. It's probably just either or. Because that's how these things commonly go. They'll have a list of stuff, but it's really not you can get all of them. You can just get one or the other. And it's like, if you live at this place, what are you doing all day to where you have to get 75 Bronco Bucks to get an hour of free time? So it's like they're taking up your time all day at a place that's supposedly your house for you to do what? And that's exactly why most people turn 18 and they get out of these trafficking organizations. They don't even know what to do or how to do anything for themselves because they're so used to people telling them when they can shower, when they can go to sleep, when they can eat, what they can eat, who they can talk to, when they can't talk to people, what they can look like and what they can't look like, whether you can wear underwear or not. Because I remember I was in this place one time where we weren't allowed to wear underwear, and that I don't even know what to say about that one. But I could really just keep going. $100 recognition while or activity with staff. I can already tell that this plays into people's attachment issues for one, and like how the kids pretty much have no one to talk to, most likely, at least not like an adult figure, unless it's some child molester they're talking to, probably. Because if they had relatives or something like that, they'd be living with them, I'm assuming. And I'm sure this also plays into pitting people against each other, if I didn't already say that. Kind of like what happened when I was in the special ed self-confined Jim Crow placement for bad black kids that they called the EBD SSBC, whatever that even stood for, because I can't really remember. But it's like the staff members will pick their favorite, the usual scapegoat and stuff that dysfunctional groups of people do pretty much. So like sometimes I was the favorite in the special ed self-confined placement because I was quote unquote smart and quiet, and because I didn't have issues like the other kids, whatever that really means, because to be truthfully honest, nobody really did anything while I was in there but the staff members, other than the second year, because there was this one boy who was really struggling. It was honestly a really sad situation. There's a lot of things I could say about that, but overall, I'm sure this has a lot to do with pitting people against each other and staff members picking favorites. And then the kid that's picked as the favorite either has to become some type of snitch type thing, like a hallway monitor in elementary school, or they end up getting, or they get bullied by the other kids because the other kids are jealous that they don't get the attention from the staff members. And so here, somebody says, what about helping kids find jobs and stuff? Is that part of the program? And then the person who made the post says, nope, they're not allowed to leave and they're not allowed to have Wi-Fi. And then someone responded with, that sounds almost culty at this point. Can't leave, no Wi-Fi. It's like purposely cutting these kids off from the rest of the world. This is really bizarre and concerning. Which is really funny because when people do come out and talk about the Cash for Kids system, especially like the mental health system, juvenile justice system part, people admit that they really don't care because those are the quote-unquote bad and crazy kids anyway. But then it's like when someone who works there talks about it, then people start acting like they care, but I guess that's kind of another topic. But anyway, this is how these systems go, especially in the US, because something I noticed about the mental health system in other countries, especially Europe, is that they're allowed to have phones, at least the adults are. I don't really know about the people under 18, but I think they can too at some placements. And that's really, really weird to me that they can in other countries. But of course, another reason why they can't here is that they don't want you to record or take pictures of any bull crap that happens that's not supposed to happen. Like how I used to have a video about how I was locked in the hallway. I don't really remember anything about that situation. I just remember the fact that I found it on one of my old emails, and it used to be on the Part 1 Abuse Evidence channel. But anyway, they don't want you to record anything that happens, and they don't want you to be able to call anybody for help either to come rescue you. So here's another post by them with the schedule thing. The first comment is mine, the second one is someone else's. And so the schedule, so 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., shower, morning check-in, daily goals and affirmations, which I don't even want to go into what, man, when they say affirmations, it is not affirmations. At 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., breakfast, phone time. I bet they only get 15 or 5-minute phone calls, like the usual stuff that goes on in the Cash for Kids system. Or worse, they can't get phone calls at all because they have no rights or because it's not a part of their treatment goals. Even though this place claims to be a shelter, but obviously it's definitely part of the Cash for Kids system, because right here it says 10 a.m. to 10:30 meds. And it's like, what meds are they giving people? And I already know for a fact it's going to be neurotoxin psychotropics. Because what else would they give people in the Cash for Kids system? I mean, There's been places I've been in where like a kid didn't eat meat. I don't know if it was for medical reasons or what, but he didn't eat meat, but he had to start eating meat because the facility wouldn't give him anything else. And there are people in there with like health issues, commonly from the drugs. Like one girl had seizures and stuff. And the last place that I was in for those couple of days when I tried to leave my abuse situation in 2022. And it's like they don't do anything about the problems that people actually have physically or mentally. Of course, not mentally, because you can't really get real mental health treatment for your trauma till 18 anyway. Plus, it's real treatment is expensive. But physical health, they definitely don't care about. I mean, people could have infections and all that, and they won't give them any meds for that. But these placements are always quick to give out neurotoxin psychotropics, whether it's Adderall, Ritalin, or Xanax, which people always try to act like Xanax isn't a psychotropic because they want to feel better than other people. That usual stuff people do when they accept labels, but they want to try to act like their label is better than other person's and they're not as messed up. Even though mental labels are just different names for the same things, and it's all different forms of double-mindedness that comes from trauma, but people are weird like. Another thing that drugs really help abusive staff members in these places to do is make people not be able to remember what all abuse happened, because these things will really wipe your memory. They also can knock you unconscious due to serotonin syndrome. They claim you're just quote-unquote sleep, but really it's 16 plus hour comas. I know there was one time where I was having 3-day comas, but I don't even want to go into that story. So when this happens, they can assault you and molest you and do all types of things and you don't remember. And just the fact that the drugs cause brain damage the way they do just makes you forget everything that happened by the time you're out of these placements. So like if you're, I don't know, like a TTI and they're starving or whatever, they just have to make sure they give you psych drugs, and by the time you get out of there, you're not even going to remember anything that happened in there, because that's how those drugs are. It's like it makes the whole situation a blur. Well, the drugs and the trauma together make it a dissociative blur. And so next, 10:30 a.m. to 1 p.m., school enrichment recreational activity. So with the fact that school is on here, the amount of times it is, and just how these placements are usually set up, I'm assuming that they don't get to go to real school and that they sit in front of some staff member that claims that they're gonna teach them for some hours and then most likely learn nothing, which is really common in the Cash for Kids system. I remember in one placement I was in, there was this boy who was 15 and would technically, well, I think he turned 16 while we were in there, I think, and he would have technically been in the 5th grade because he was locked up so much by his abusers for his depression that he didn't get to go to school much. He couldn't really read. He couldn't really do math. In fact, most of the older kids in this specific placement couldn't really do math. They couldn't even really do some basic math. And there was this one boy in there who was 10. He was the only one that could really do the math, and I kind of could too. But overall, these placements don't have real schools. They'll give you like a couple of worksheets, the same ones in like pretty much every place that you go to. I guess maybe it depends on the state at least. But I know at least when I was in North Carolina, all these placements that claimed they had schools gave out the same few worksheets, and you don't actually learn anything. You pretty much just sit in there and then you fill out the papers, and that's pretty much it. You may not even go that often, and if your parents don't agree to it, you don't go at all. But there is no real school in these placements, and I want to make that clear. I remember in the same place that I just mentioned, there was this boy who was not in the same one who didn't eat meat, but they made him start eating meat, which was really risky with the whole turn off the bowel side effects because his bowels were already turned off severely, so it's made it worse. But anyway, he wanted to be an author, but he didn't know how to read or even really write, and he was also a foster kid, so he had been through all types of trauma being trafficked through the systems. But anyway, the next thing is lunchtime or phone time. In fact, before I even go to the next thing, I really have to give a tribute to this kid because he really said something that I had thought about a couple times, but he said something that I really need to let stick with me to be able to get through all the bullcrap, which is what you have to do in these types of situations. And so basically, I'm going to call him D because his name started with a D. And I still see him as like a brother. And basically, what he said to me and the other kids is that pain isn't real and that it's just like kind of like a figment of your imagination and that it's your brain's way of letting you know that you got hurt, but it still technically wasn't real. I can't really say it the way he did, but honestly, it's a good coping mechanism when you're in situations like these. Okay, so anyway, lunchtime and phone time. Pretty sure I already said that the phone time is probably like 5 to 15 minutes because that's that crap that these systems like to do. Or worse, they don't let you use the phone at all. And of course, when you're under 18 and you're in placements like this, even though they claim that they're a shelter, you're not allowed to call who you want to call. You can only call somebody 18 plus that is on your call list. And since these are runaways, I'm assuming that it's not about who their parents say they can call. It's about who the staff members agree to let them call. So yeah, and then the lunch is probably prison food, to be honest. I mean, I hope not, but I would hope they would at least have home-cooked meals in a place like this. I was only in one place that home-cooked. Well, no. Well, I guess it depends on if you're like in some residential placement where it's kind of like you technically live there for a while, or if you're in like a straight-up hospital, then but the hospitals, I don't even know how to explain it, but hopefully the food isn't that bad. Okay, so I guess I shouldn't go over the school thing again. Or did I already go over it for a second time? I don't even know. Snack time. I don't really know what to say about that. I'm assuming they just give out, I don't know, chips or something. For quiet time and phone time, I'm sure the quiet time is really depressing. Anytime placements claim that you have to have quiet time, it usually means that you're sent to your room, or basically your cell. I don't know how the rooms are set up in this place, obviously, but usually kind of like being in a cell and you're not allowed to leave. I know there was this one place I was in where the doors were locked from the outside and we had to knock to come out. And if the staff members didn't hear you knocking, you couldn't go to the bathroom or anything. But you had to knock on the door and then the staff members had to say, you can come out. And there are also group homes set up like that too. But anywho, you go into the room and then you just stare at the ceiling and cry for like some hours. You sing to yourself and rock back and forth to cope for a couple of hours until they finally say that you can come out and talk to people again. And it's really, really depressing. That's when the flashbacks and stuff really start to hit. Okay, so dinner time, phone time. I'm assuming they eat something unless they have punishments where people can't eat. But of course, I don't really know that much about this place or how it's set up. But I can tell from the stuff that I have seen that it's definitely the Cash for Kids system placement. And so I'm just going to go to the next thing. Enrichment, recreational activity. So I'm assuming that this means that they may or may not let you do something. And you either go to like some fenced-in playground where you can't see over the fence and you can't see through the fence and you want to jump over the fence, or you can't go outside and you just have to sit in there and play spades or something with people like you do in prisons. I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember any of the card games, but I learned a lot the first one or two times. Well, really the first time I was locked up, because all you can do is play cards. Okay, so 8 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. is chores. Basically how this works in the Cash for Kids system is that so they don't have to hire janitors or anything. They make you do all the work, and so they make you clean windows and wipe tables and sweep and stuff. And I mean nothing's wrong with chores, but it's just how they're done in these types of settings and the reason that they're done. It's one thing if you're like living with relatives and you're washing the clothes and stuff, but it's another thing if you're already in prison and you're doing slave work, basically. So you do these chores, and then I don't really know what else to say about that, to be honest. You clean and stuff, and you pick up other people's messes, and just saying that gives me flashbacks. But yeah, and then you may or may not get a reward, probably not. But of course, if you don't do it, there can be punishments. And it's really funny because they don't want you to have cleaning supplies and stuff any other time because they don't want you to commit suicide and escape. But they want you to have cleaning supplies to help them clean. 8:30 to 9:30 p.m. Hygiene and meds again. And why this place is drugging people on psychotropics anyway, when the lady who's making these posts claims that she doesn't even really believe that they're licensed. I don't really know, but of course that's how these things go. Hygiene means that they finally let you take a shower and brush your teeth. Because, of course, you can't do any of that when you want to. In fact, I remember the last place I was in, where I was in there for like a couple of days after I tried to leave my abuse situation the first time in 2022. I wanted to brush my teeth after eating instead of before eating, but they kept getting mad and saying I couldn't do that. But, of course, that was the least worst place I'd ever been in, so I can't really talk about it like that. 9:30 to 10 p.m. self-care / quiet time and phone time. So, basically what this means is that you rock back and forth crying while singing to yourself in the corner in your cell. Or at least that's how it usually goes. But really what it probably means is that they give you papers and stuff kind of like they would do for affirmations, and they tell you that it's your fault that you feel upset that we have you locked in a building you don't even know us, and you just need to use coping mechanisms. And then 10 p.m. is bedtime. Dang, this is 28 minutes. I was not trying to do this. But anyway, something that I really don't like about these placements is how you have to get up so early, but then you have to go to sleep so late. And it's like, you can't go to bed at 8, you can't go to bed at 9. They want you to go to bed somewhere from 10 to 11 p.m. And commonly they want you to get up somewhere from 6 to 7 a.m., which it's just really crazy. But yeah, so that's the schedule. And from what I've seen, it's the same thing every single day. Phone policy at youth shelters. I recently just started at a new youth shelter that's set to open soon, and we're writing the rules policies now. One of the rules proposed is a ban on cell phones, electronics, and absolutely no access to Wi-Fi. This will be for homeless youth from ages 12 to 18. This shelter is also going to be different in that it will be 24/7, and the youth will not be permitted to leave the facility unless it's pre-approved for school. I think this is the dumbest idea I've ever heard, and it absolutely will not work. It sounds like voluntary incarceration. Am I wrong here? Is this how other youth shelters actually operate? And so, yeah. I forgot about this part, so I guess it hasn't opened yet. But, I mean, I would say that it will work, and it'll work because people under 18 have no rights. So that means once these people get in here, they're not going to be allowed to leave. That's why it's going to work, not because it's actually helping anybody. And this was a comment under a video I reposted about a dude who was killed in a mental facility as a boy, but they ended up bringing him back to life. And so basically, she said, "Man, I grew up in group homes too, and I was abused, beaten, starved, raped, and so much more. It was a effing nightmare. I finally ran away at 16 and hid in a different state till I turned 18 and never looked back. I still have trauma, and I'm 38 now. Those places destroyed me." So this goes along with the screenshot that I used as a thumbnail for my Truth of the Homeless Population video, and basically that you don't want to be in the cash for kids system. It's better. Okay, I ran out of recording time, but it's better to really try to do the lay low till 18 thing correctly if you really have no other options. Okay, so this screenshot goes along with what I have been saying in my runaway videos and then my Truth of the Homeless Population videos. And so what they said is that my parents are sleeping under a tarp besides a tent. What could I send them to make their life easier? And so they talk about how they left at 14 and their sibling did too. And this goes along with what I said in other videos, which is that sometimes people end up homeless by themselves, somewhere from ages 7 to 16. And so anyway, my parents have always been this way. When I was younger, I had 3 siblings, so people always helped us. I left home at 14. My sister left at 14. My little brother stuck around and joined the army at 18, which I really hate how that goes because the army is commonly snatching up kids that are in abusive situations and have no choice, and then they end up with more trauma and they end up brainwashed and schizophrenic and homeless still after they get out the military. But anyway, my big brother always took care of them but passed away 2 years. Okay, I ran out of recording time again, but passed away 2 years ago. They're homeless now. I cannot have them stay with me because they would never leave. My relationship would end. I send them money when I can. I do what I can. I love them and I wish I could do more. If I was rich, I would just buy them a place. I'm going to get them a tent. What else could I get to make their life easier? Please give me ideas.